about the haters. It can take freedom from a cold dead hands. We're locked in low for the last dance. Cause living on the American gangster. Ready to die for this man.
This is a little more straight than that. Real gender.
Ready to die for this land.
The GOP supermajority is under attack from Planned Parenthood. Well, at least that's the story that they're telling the three people in their town hall. We're going to get into that, as well as a Putnam County pawn shop has had their FFL license revoked after repeated infractions that have spanned over a decade. We're going to get into all the details with that, including some of the more unbelievable statements provided as excuses to the ATF. We're also going to get into the dirty books that were removed and the one that was kept in Rutherford County schools. That scandal. And if you don't know what rainbow corn is, you need but you're going to have to do that over on Rumble, because as most of you know, the first 15 minutes, 20 minutes of the show will be on Facebook and YouTube. I don't know what happened there. Somebody kicked me out. The first 15 minutes or so will be on Facebook and YouTube. After that, we will be knocking those things off, and we will be just over on Rumble and on X. Please comment, like, share this channel. Help us grow. The Patriot Punk Network has put out 3 new stories this week. We're going to cover all of those. Plus, there is an anti-abortion trafficking lawsuit that is all the rage and is getting a whole lot of support on the left. We're going to look and see if that has any merit. But before we get started, would you please go over to patriotpunknetwork.com. There you can find out some of the latest news stories. You're also going to be able to look at the best videos that we've put out. We're going to be cycling those through. We're in the process of doing some upgrades. You may have noticed the show timer at the beginning had a few new little perks. We've got to do something to keep a hold of Tennessee for the average person. Right now, we're dominated by elitists, and we're trying to do our part to stop that. So you can go check out previous episodes of the Patriot Punkcast. We do need to update some of those on that channel. But you can go over to the videos tab and look at all sorts of things. We've got news articles. The one that dropped today is one we're going to be covering here in just a few minutes. And we've got everything from election integrity, national and local news, to scandals about the chosen sperm in Rutherford County, Coffee County, Putnam County, and more. We are entirely self-funded. And by self-funded, that means we're broke. So if you guys would help us out, you can rant. I think it's called a rant on Rumble. You hit the little $sign. You can also super chat on YouTube. That money goes to us pretty quickly. You can also go directly to the website, click on the support tab. And when you're there, you can make a one-time contribution or sign up for a monthly program. That's the best way to support us directly. We're going to get into that probably right after we do the introductions, because James O'Keefe said something that really hit home, and I think that we need to be the change that we want to see. You can also visit my business, midtnkirby.com. There you can schedule to take a look at the new Avalier. Now, there is a new model coming down, so we've got some extremely discounted rates on the end of the inventory for the Avalier 2. The new model is basically just a change in color bag, but if you can save over $500 on a unit, now would be the time to do it. We only have a few left in stock. You can go to midtnkirby.com, take a look at that. It is way more than just a vacuum. Now that all the business is taken care of, let me introduce my co-host, good friend, and out of the closet anarchist, Daniel Wagner. Oh, is he going to click himself in?
I patiently wait every time for you to click me in, and then you wait for me to click. It's just fun. Anyway, yeah. Well, yeah. What's up? What's up, man? It's quite a busy week. Holy crap! The amount of stories that we've talked about, and the amount of topics that we discussed, and the amount of different directions we've discussed going. Like, holy crap! I'm excited for the future. I really am.
My eyes hurt from making all the thumbnails and trying to, especially with everything being formatted so much differently. And I'm not very good, up until about 3 years ago, my experience was paint, and it was not, wasn't even good paint. It was like shitty stick figure paint. I'm excited to have our return guest, good friend. We've done quite a lot of stuff with Miss Pennie Fay. And let's go ahead and bring her on. Let her tell who she is and what she does.
Hey everyone, I'm Pennie Fay. I'm from Pennie Fay Live on Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, and nowhere else because they've terminated me because there's no such thing as free speech anymore. I'm here because I'm great friends with these guys. We've done a lot of rallies together, just trying to get freedom for everyone. Different people from different pods with similar backgrounds. What background is that? We're American. Keep it America. So I hope you're all well, and let's hear what Patriot Punk has to say to us today.
Hey, well I really appreciate that. I think we're all just liberty minded. We're sick and tired of being treated like we're too dumb to figure out what's going on, or too dumb to be trusted with the truth. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, part of the problem, right?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, I should say part of the problem is that when a number of us have a very clear solution in mind and we try to preach about it, and then we get looked at like we're the idiots. But then again, we're all doing the same thing. Everybody thinks they have the solution, so it's just a never-ending battle. And it just seems like I'm watching people continue to march towards something that is just going to be their demise, and yet they keep marching that way regardless of anything. No amount of screaming I can do is going to change anything. So it's very black pilly, red pilly all at the same time. I just feel like I have a whole medicine cabinet full of pills I'm working on at the moment.
Yep.
That's because everybody's dug in. They're all dug in, and nobody wants to see that there is change available, and that's by them getting off their butts and doing something.
I heard that.
How many times? Yeah, how many times have the three of us done rallies in the Capitol? How many times our convoy? All of that. How many people were actually involved?
I had
the amount.
4 layers of pants on when we were in Niagara.
The amount of people.
And I had to sleep with an audio recorder going the whole night. But anyway, on that note, speaking about getting involved, I'd like to talk about something that James O'Keefe put out today. I don't normally talk about national politics. Sometimes we'll cover something if it's really big. But James O'Keefe put out a tweet earlier today, and you run a show. So real quick, shameless plug, you cover national politics. Is that?
That's correct.
So you're going to experience this quite a lot. And James O'Keefe, can you bring that up, Daniel?
Yep, we're just waiting for the cue.
All right, awesome. So there will be more start over. So there will be more whistleblowers soon. Thinking out loud in the spirit of radical transparency. We need to figure out the economics. The commercial imperative and profit motive seems incompatible with this type of unconventional truth telling. Preach, brother. Spreading unauthorized information is a massive liability for the company or organization publishing the story. And the more damning the info, which is required for the accountability that everyone seeks, the worse it gets for the courageous whistleblower who violates their covenant or their NDA with their employer to share it with the public. Over time, the liabilities and expenses will always outweigh the assets and the revenue, and with the added expense of lawyering. Even if the whistleblower raises $500,000, which is extremely rare, they spend it all on lawyers. People say find pro bono lawyers, and that's like saying find pro bono food. Things like blueberries and lawyers cost money, and the market determines these costs. There is no such thing as a free lunch. He goes on to talk about philanthropy and how some of these lawsuits will cost upwards of $1 million, and that there are hundreds of lawsuits. He says that he would need $250 million, and even then, it's tricky. And then he finishes off with, or almost finishes off with, money draws power, and power tends to corrupt. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, that doesn't mean it must necessarily corrupt, but it's near impossible given the current state of human nature. There's too much power floating around. And I think that this happens on a state, local, and national level. He finishes with, what is certain? The first step for the government whistleblower is a leap of faith into the unknown, akin to a spacewalking astronaut with no umbilical cord. They do it because it's right and just, and because they want you to know what they know. All of this makes the actions of the whistleblower all the more courageous. Now, Penny, he asked for a solution, but before I offer mine, I'd like to get y'all's thoughts. Do you see that kind of an issue happening?
Yeah. So the first question I would ask is, how did we get here? Right. And I can tell you that's because of the design. What's the design? Well, it used to be, it was a one parent who worked and one parent who stayed home and raised the children. Then it became part-time on the mother because they couldn't afford the extra grocery bills. Then it became both parents. At that point, after both parents, they're now being taxed over 2 days a week working, that they have no time to see the bullshit that's going on around them. Excuse me for cursing, but it's so true that in order to get the power you need, you have to dismantle people's time, and their families. And this dismantling is what brought us to this place today. And that people no longer have morals. They just don't care. It's about the profit. It's not about the people. Heck with the people. Why save them? They're just cockroaches.
Sorry, I might disagree with you on one small thing there, Penny. It's not so much that I don't think it's that people don't have morals. I think it's that when you try to actually live by your morals and your principles, it becomes increasingly difficult as those morals impact your ability to make a living for your family, and it becomes more and more difficult depending on the situation. Especially when you run into a situation where, to whistleblow could cost you everything. It could cost you your job. It just becomes increasingly difficult to actually live by those morals that you might actually hold internally, if that makes sense.
Yes, but let me just say, the morals I meant are the people in power. They don't have the morals. The people that are working and raising families, they have morals. They're just too afraid to speak of it these days because they're shut down so quickly. How would they shut down? They could be fired. They could be thrown out of their favorite club. Something so small as, I won't cut your hair because you're against us. It just, the division is the plan.
Yep, I can agree with that.
We're allowing it. We're part of it. We're part of it. I mean, we feel that way too about certain sectors and people and so forth.
So I have a solution, and it actually touches on that thought of things are too big and, why aren't we, he talks about trying to dismantle it from the top down and how expensive that lawfare is. I'm not supporting waging lawfare. What I'm supporting is accountability. And on a local level, so many people are victimized. And I was discussing this on John Harris's Facebook today, and talking about how people think that they should. He was complaining about law firms advertising that they're the biggest, and how he says the biggest doesn't necessarily mean the best. And I just had to comment that, the real problem is that unless you have, between $5,000 and $25,000 to put in someone's pocket to start off, you can't get an attorney. I mean, for something simple like a public intox, you could get one for $1,500. But if I know for a fact that if you get assaulted in a government building and you need to defend yourself, it could be $20,000 for a decent attorney.
Good Lord, that definitely speaks to the laws of supply and demand. Like, why are lawyers so expensive? Well, because there's too few of them, or there's too many potential cases for them to take on that they can be selective about it. It just screams of an issue with the legal system overall, that there is such an overflow, such an influx of potential lawsuits and damages and laws broken and issues to be had, that it's become a buyer's market for a seller's market for the lawyers and whatnot.
Yeah. The other thing that I think is interesting is that all politics is local. If you try to, imagine, and I'm going to try to be careful with this while we're still on Facebook, but imagine that you're Godzilla and, there's an aircraft carrier right in front of you. And I'm trying to be very dramatic here. There you go. Thank you for imagining it, Daniel. You make a good Godzilla.
Hey, keep going. I can only do this so long.
Okay. Well, if you run into a very, very large vessel, Noah's Ark, or, an aircraft carrier, it's going to be increasingly difficult for you to tip it over. But if people were to drill holes all around the side, it would sink with enough holes. All politics is local. And if you think about it the same way, instead of going at it from the top down, when you join Congress, you have, in order to get on some of these committees, you have to bring a certain amount to the table to the RNC or to the Republican Party. And if you don't meet your fundraising guidelines, then you don't get that cabinet position. Well, they are holding our representatives hostage that way. We have to start at the local level. And if someone has betrayed their constituents because the RNC needed $250,000 in order to put them on a cabinet or something, well, tough. Sink their ship. And I think that if we were to start off locally, and I did some math, as broke as everyone is, do you think you could come up with $1 a month if it meant really saving the nation? What do you think?
Depends who's getting the money. If it's the government, hell no.
No,
right?
no,
It depends who the person is getting the money.
Well, so before we can walk, we have to stand. Okay, so we could afford $1 a month, almost everybody. Even if they couldn't afford it, they could find it on the street, ask somebody. Anyway,
I got 20 nickels that says you could afford $1 a month if you had to.
So there is 1.8 million people voted for Trump in 2020. And that's assuming everything was completely legitimate. $1 a month from 1.8 million people is just about $22.5 million a year. Just in the state of Tennessee. You could employ however, and I don't want to necessarily say employ. You would have to find a way to, in a nonpartisan, non-governmental way, invest in ultra small local politics.
Oh, good Lord. How does that even happen in today's economy?
You would have
and
to
that's not enough money. That's not enough money.
It's absolutely enough money for Tennessee to cover local counties. And I'm telling you, everyone underestimates how much of this is local. I'm not saying it would solve everything. Okay. But
No.
so you could hire 250 journalists, pay them $50,000 a year, and you would still have over $7 million, $8 million left over. And at 250 journalists all across the state, that is about the size of all the mainstream media that we deal with.
I see where you're going, but you have to realize that the outside groups that are involved with local elections, like Soros and the Clintons and the millions of dollars that they've been putting into the urban areas, as far as just a district attorney's race, it runs for millions of dollars. So that's not enough money considering how many counties.
Well, so hold on. Again, we are already mounting a pretty formidable opponent with 4 or 5 alternative media outlets that none of which are making any money. So here's a thought: 1.8 million Trump supporters. Instead of going through an organization, let's be the change we want to see, and everyone send $12 once a year to your favorite local podcaster, whether that's you, whether that's Courtney Turner, whether that's Daniel, whether that's me, whether that's Ashley Kay, the unsilent patriot in Chattanooga. We have to stand before we can do it. If you do that, then the 5 or 6 people that are doing it now, imagine if Donald Trump just said, hey guys, this month, I want you to invest in your local media people that are telling the truth. Send them $5 instead of me. Though I'm not saying 1.8 million people would do it, but there would be a lot. That right there would be enough to affect change. The issue we have right now is that people don't have the infrastructure, and obviously James O'Keefe is experiencing the exact same problems. And it doesn't take that much money to pay. One person could find a way to do that conceivably. I'm not saying one person spend 22 million, but if someone invested in a startup and hired 250 people, then they could find a way to generate $1 a month from everyone, whether it's through advertising or whatever. My point is that I think the underlying systemic issue is that so many people are used to not paying for their news. We used to buy newspapers. So
Right.
if someone published trash, you wouldn't buy it. Now everything's free on the internet, and you are the product being sold to the advertisers. And I think that's
So how are you going to solve things with let's say they pick a few podcasters? How will we solve that?
we
You
have
know,
to then report and do the journalism and do the
Right.
exposing the things, do the news coverage on the local events. And of course, it's kind of like if I brought someone from California in to cover the news from Tennessee, they might be really fancy with their production. They might have some, city boy tricks, but they aren't from Tennessee. They wouldn't understand what the life is like for quite a long time. It's the same all the way down to the local level. When I look at some of these local politicians, the Republican Party is atrocious, but the Republican voter is you, me. They're the average person. And the only people that are actually getting any of this money that is being donated, that is being given to organizations, are the big expensive speakers. Ben Shapiro charges, what is it, $100,000 speaking fee?
I don't know. I don't follow him. I don't like him personally.
I'd rather pay Bryson Gray $2,500 or $5,000, put on a concert, and maybe you don't raise 100,000. Maybe you only raise 30, but you only had to pay him 5. You still profited more money. And
you get the truth out of him, right? You get the real news out of Bryson.
People that are
charging
you do, and the people that are charging you $100,000 to speak, no offense, I appreciate the work Ben Shapiro does. The world needs them, all that stuff, but he doesn't know anything about your life, my life, and he doesn't really care. Maybe you put a restriction on it that it has to be capped at 3 people. But don't want to get off into the weeds too much. So I think that's a good time to transition to the firearms license that was.
I was just about to pull you out of the weeds, man.
Yeah.
Just about to pull you out.
So
Sorry.
Putnam County Pawn Shop, called Quick Cash Pawn, had their firearms license revoked in 2023, according to documents that we obtained. Now, I actually heard that this happened a year ago, longer than a year ago, but as we were discussing earlier, the infrastructure is not necessarily there to submit records requests for everything all the time. Somebody else must have submitted a records request for this, or it was sent to them anonymously. That's why we really like whistleblowers. And that's how I got it. And because I got it, now I can point out some stuff in it. So it turns out that the pawn shop was owned by Sheriff Eddie Ferris's father, Jackie Ferris. And if you guys know anything, Sheriff Ferris is far from a clean-cut individual. Now, I don't know anything about his father other than he clearly did not handle his paperwork correctly. So documents recently obtained by the Patriot Punk Network show that Quick Cash Pawn of Cookeville had their firearms license revoked in 2023 following multiple repeat violations found by the ATF. You can scroll down from that. It's located at 42 Cedar Lane, right in the middle of Cookeville, and has been in business for several decades. In 2008, the FFL license was transferred to Sheriff Eddie Ferris's father. And since that time, the pawn shop has had 6 inspections. And according to the documents, they have had violations in every single inspection. Now, real quick, scroll up just a little bit on that. I do want to point out in 2008, that was 3 years after Operation Tarnish Shield, where one of the people actually went to jail or was charged with almost the exact same thing that this pawn shop was guilty of, allegedly. So if you scroll down now, they had been discovered. The ATF conducted a compliance check in 08, 09, 11, 19, and 2021. All of these inspections resulted in a thorough review of all cited violations and proposed corrective actions. The ATF memorialized the need for improvement with actual conferences for those years and a warning letter in another year. In the written follow-up to the warning conferences, the licensee, the owner who was responsible for everything, said that any future violations, either repeat or otherwise, could be viewed as willful and may result in revocation of their license. So when we get into looking at this, so first off, before we go any further, what is your thought, Penny, on there you go. What is your thought, Penny, on the ATF, generally speaking?
I think they need to be disbanded and thrown away. We don't need them. We don't need someone telling us what we can and cannot do, because one document says clearly that there should be no infringement on the Second Amendment. And the ATF, going back to your first segment, power hungry, and they make stupid rules, especially after what happened in Oklahoma last year. It's not even a year ago. It's just 6 months ago. But the way they handled that investigation with the person who runs the airport and ended up killing him after they surveilled him and followed him for something that he was legally able to do, which is buy guns and sell guns. So I think the ATF needs to be gone. I think that we have laws on the books to protect people, which are not being held up by your local laws. And that is, criminals shouldn't have guns and certain people shouldn't have guns. But however, for a 3-letter agency to tell a person how many they can buy, where they can buy, how they can store, there should never even be a stupid list showing who has weapons. Just my opinion.
Absolutely. So to put things in context, when they do a background check, which I do not agree with mandated background checks. But at the same time, I do understand that there are like serial killers and things that are, or at least murderers who get out of prison. And as a society, through due process, there are certain people who do lose their right to own a firearm. That's a different discussion. But according to the allegations, the pawn shop at one point claimed that they did not know how to fill out the background check paperwork. That's why there was 19 errors. There was also another time in terms of selling guns to someone out of state, which again, I think, I don't think that should be illegal, but it is. And they did so. Now, where it gets me is selling guns to someone who lives in a different state is exactly what somebody was charged in Operation Tarnish Shield for. They had 19 errors on their background check paperwork, or on their 4473 form. And the biggest issue that I really saw is that they claimed they had not had enough experience or enough training on how to complete that form. I worked in a pawn shop for 3 months, and I could fill that form out within the first month of working there. Everyone there has worked there for almost the entire since 2008.
So just
This
playing,
is-
sorry,
this.
just to play devil's advocate for just a moment here, how does this compare to other inspections? I mean, is 19 errors, is this spread out amongst all of their inspections, or is this per inspections about 19 errors? And how does that compare to, like, say, any other pawn shop? Is this typical or is this atypical? Is what I'm asking.
I am not an expert in the pawn shop business, but I do know that when we had our ATF inspection, there were 0 errors. Now, we did not have, I think they had like 600 firearms. We only had like 280 or something like that. But when serial numbers might not be kept up with accurately enough, and things like that, that leads you to believe that there could be, something else going on. That's why the ATF tracks it. Again, I'm with you. I think that if we're going to have any form of inspections, pawn shop regulations, what it should be on a local level, a local with limits. I don't know that the ATF should exist, but if your entire family is, if your family's in politics and you would charge someone else because they unlawfully transferred a firearm, or you're in law enforcement and your family would charge someone else, I don't think it's right that one person, Penny, if you moved to Alabama and I sold you 2 of those bang bangs, I could be charged.
Right.
And
And also they're debating now that if you do sell, that you would need a license to sell. This is the power grab that they're having right now that is unconstitutional. So they would add that on as a charge from a bureaucrat's decision. See, the ATF doesn't even follow the laws of Congress. They make up their own.
And again, I'm not trying to necessarily defend the ATF here, but at the same time, this stinks of, do you know
nepotism.
who my son is? Yeah, well, it's
yes, nepotism. Right.
Repeated abuse.
Smell it a mile away.
Real quick, and then we'll move. We'll knock off YouTube and Facebook. I do want to read this excuse that was given and addressed. This is a quote.
Sorry, I just had a real quick question. In the midst of this, is this okay? So, is it safe to say that this story is not necessarily, like, for lack of a better phrase, a smoking gun, but it's just more of a hinting at what could possibly be something deeper going on in the area? Is that a fair assessment of it?
I am making no assumptions or presumptions. All I am going to say is that, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people that I've spoke to, that is a ridiculous amount of violations, and that perhaps some people just should not, have an FFL license.
Sure.
That's what I'll say. So, but and this will completely epitomize why. Okay, scroll down. We're looking. Looking for the Walmart part.
Oh.
Keep going up.
I got you.
Walmart's always in the news when it comes to guns, huh?
Yeah. Okay. During the hearing, licensee stated that it utilized a photo of a poster displayed at Walmart showing states where firearms could be transferred, which is not an ATF publication. When asked if licensee was taking advice from Walmart, responsible person Mr. Betcher, who was the partner, and I believe is maybe married to some previous supporters of Sheriff Ferris, responsible person Mr. Betcher stated, "Not anymore."
The latest prank that we're going to see on TikTok is people putting up fake laws and regulations in just random places in Walmart to see if people follow them or not.
Yes.
What do you mean I can't marry my dog? There was a sign up in Walmart.
No, put one up in the dog part that says, maximum 6-foot leash allowed by law, and you watch all these
by
people
Walmart.
Yeah. So, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and smash that like button and share it. With their algorithms, you're going to have to send it to anyone you want to see it. We are as shadow banned as they come. We appreciate you watching. Hop on over to X or Rumble. Join the conversation. Daniel, do you see any comments yet?
No, I'm closing out the YouTube and the Facebook now. So we'll see y'all later. Find us over on Rumble if you want to see the rest of the show. All right, Penny, time to get naughty.
Yeah. Now we can talk about the rainbow corn. So
naughty by nature.
But certainly more cursing is allowed, not necessarily encouraged, but it's allowed.